Around the World in 80 Days by Jules Verne. Chapter 1. The adventure begins. Mr. Phileas Fogg was tall, good-looking, about 40 years old, and he had a large, expensive house in London. He lived simply and quietly, and he did the same things at the same times each day. He always got up at exactly 8 o'clock, had breakfast at 8:25, and washed at 9:35 every morning. Mr. Fogg lived alone, and needed a servant to look after him. On the morning of Wednesday, the 2nd of October, 1872, he was waiting to interview a new one. There was a knock at the door, and a strong young man came in.
I understand that your name is Passepartout. Where are you from?
Mr. Fogg asked.
Yes, I'm James Passepartout. I'm from France. I'm 30 and I've had several jobs.
The Frenchman said.
I used to be a circus acrobat, and later I was a firefighter in Paris. Now, I hope for a quieter life in England.
I hear that you work hard, Mr. Passepartout. I'm happy for you to be my servant, and you can start today.
Phileas Fogg picked up his coat and hat, left the house at exactly 11:30, and he walked to the Reform Club. As he didn't work, he went to the club almost every day. There, he always read newspapers and played cards with other rich men. That day, he played cards with 5 friends. One of them, Stuart, said,
Have you heard the news? Someone has taken £55,000 from the Bank of England. They think that was a well-dressed man who was seen there. The police have sent detectives round the world, but they will never find him. The world is just too big.
The world has grown smaller than you think. With fast ships and new railways, you could now travel around the world in 80 days.
No,
said Stuart.
no one could do that.
I believe that I can. If I can't, I'll give you £20,000. But if I succeed, you will give me the £20,000.
The others discussed Fogg's idea. Finally, they said,
We agree.
I'll take a train that leaves London at 8:45 this evening, and I'll return to this same room before 8:45 on Saturday, 21st December, or the £20,000 will be yours.
Fogg finished the game of cards and walked home. He put £20,000 into a large bag and gave it to his new servant.
Passepartout, put some clothes in this bag too. I'm traveling around the world and you're coming with me.
Around the world?
Said Passepartout, surprised.
Yes, in 80 days, and we leave at 8:45.
Passepartout packed. They took a taxi to the station, and Fogg bought 2 tickets to Paris. His 5 friends were waiting there, and they all said goodbye. Then Passepartout and he got on the train. 5 minutes later, the long journey began as the train moved slowly out of the station. Chapter 2. East India. Fogg and Passepartout travelled by train to Italy, and there they caught a ship, the Mongolia, to take them to Bombay in India. Exactly 7 days after they had left London, the ship stopped in Suez, Egypt. There, Fogg and Passepartout left the ship and went to show the passports at the British consulate. On the way there, they were seen by another Englishman, Mr. Fix. He was a London police detective, and he was in Suez to catch the London bank robber. He was excited now because Fogg closely matched the description of the robber. He secretly followed them. Then, when Fogg returned to the ship alone, he started talking to Passepartout. He discovered that the men were travelling around the world, and that Fogg was carrying £20,000. Fix was sure that Fogg was the robber. He decided to join the Mongolia and travelled to Bombay. There he could arrest Fogg because India was a British colony. He sent a message to London. He asked the police to send the correct arrest papers straight to Bombay. Passepartout was surprised to see Fix again, now on the ship. They spent time together and became quite friendly as they sailed along the Suez Canal, through the Red Sea and across the Indian Ocean. This journey normally took 10 days, but Fogg had promised the ship's engineer a lot of money if he could get them to Bombay ahead of schedule, and he did. They reached Bombay at 4:30 p.m. on the 20th of October, 2 days early. There, Fogg sent Passepartout to buy more clothes for them both. While Passepartout was shopping, Fogg went straight to the passport office and then to the railway station. There, he waited quietly for 8 p.m. train to Calcutta. He was not interested in seeing Bombay. However, Passepartout was very excited to be there. He finished shopping and then looked around the city. He decided to go inside a beautiful temple, but he didn't know that everyone must first take off their shoes. And he didn't. Immediately, 3 angry priests attacked him and started pulling them off. Passepartout then made his second mistake. He hit back at his attackers and then ran out of the temple. He finally arrived at the station with no hat or shoes, 5 minutes before the train left. He immediately told Focus a story. Fix was hiding near them, and he heard the story too. He still didn't have the arrest papers, and he was planning to follow Fogg to Calcutta. But then, while the others were getting on the train, he suddenly decided not to go. While the train was slowly starting its 3-day journey to Calcutta, Fix was thinking about the new idea that Passepartout's adventure had given him.
Chapter 3: Saving Auda. Fogg and Passepartout were now on their way across India by train. They traveled through forests full of wild animals and groups of dangerous people who often attacked others. A British Army officer, Sir Francis Cromarty, sat with them. He knew India well, and he said to Fogg,
"Your friend made a big mistake at the temple. If the British police catch him, he will have big problems."
Perhaps,
Fogg replied calmly.
but that won't stop me. I've done nothing wrong, so I'll continue my journey.
A little later, the train suddenly stopped. A man walked through the train and asked everyone to get off.
Where have we stopped?
Fogg asked.
The railway stops here.
The train conductor said.
It isn't finished. It starts again at Allahabad, 50 miles from here.
The 3 men left the train and started looking for transport. Fogg found and bought an elephant for £2,000. He also found a guide. The 3 travelers climbed on the elephant, and their guide led them through the dangerous forest. Hours later, they heard something strange. They hid and watched. It was a group of people who were singing, dancing, and playing sad music. They were carrying the dead body of someone rich, and they were making a beautiful young woman walk next to the body. Sir Francis knew what was happening.
"This is a T,"
he said.
"They will burn the woman alive with her dead husband tomorrow morning."
Fogg said.
I think we should save this woman.
"I do too,
Said Sir Francis.
but it will be very dangerous."
They followed the crowd to a temple, but they could not rescue her there. There were too many people. Morning came, and Fogg and Sir Francis watched while the woman was put on a pile of wood with her dead husband. They didn't know what to do. The fire was started, and there seemed nothing they could do to help the poor young victim. The fire grew stronger. Then suddenly, the dead body on top of the fire stood up. It picked up the woman and jumped down. Everyone around was very afraid. The dead man rushed to Fogg with the woman and said,
Let's go.
It was Passepartout. Quickly, they lifted the young woman up on the elephant and raced away before the crowd understood what was happening. After the successful rescue, they finally reached Allahabad. There, Fogg bade their guide and also gave him the elephant. The guide was very pleased. The beautiful young woman thanked everyone in excellent English. Her name was Auda, and she had an uncle in Hong Kong. Fogg offered to take her there, and they caught the next train together. This reached Calcutta at 7 a.m. on the 25th of October. Fogg was no longer 2 days early, but he was not late. He was happy.
Chapter 4: The Route to Singapore. In Bombay, Detective Fix still didn't have the correct papers to arrest Fogg, but he knew that Passepartout could go to the prison for his mistake at the temple. He paid the priests there some money to go with him to Calcutta and tell the police about Passepartout. So, when Fogg, Passepartout and Aouda got off the train in Calcutta, a police officer stopped them and asked them to follow him. 20 minutes later, they arrived at a strange building. While they were going in, Fogg realized that it was a courtroom. Inside, they saw a judge and a crowd of people. A door opened and the three priests entered. The judge explained why they were there, and he held up a pair of shoes.
My shoes!
Passepartout shouted in surprise. Clearly, he was guilty. The judge spoke.
The religions of India are protected by law. Because of what this man did, he must go to prison for 15 days.
15 days?
Shouted Passepartout.
Silence!
Answered the judge.
And Mr. Fogg will go to prison for 7 days, because he's this man's master.
Fix was happy. Now there was enough time for the papers to arrive. Fogg stood up and calmly said,
How much is the bail? I'll pay it now.
1,000 pounds for each man.
The judge decided.
You will get it back when you leave prison.
Fogg paid the money. Passepartout took his shoes and they left the court with Aouda. They went straight to the port and prepared to join the Rangoon. This was a ship that was soon leaving Calcutta for Hong Kong. Fix followed them and saw that Fogg was planning to leave and to lose the bail money. He wasn't pleased. He now decided to join the Rangoon secretly. He also asked the police to send the arrest papers to Hong Kong when they received them. He now hoped to catch Fogg there, as it was another British colony. During the journey, the weather was good, and as they passed various beautiful islands, the passengers relaxed. But not Fix. He wanted to ask Passepartout about the young woman who was travelling with him and his master. So he found the Frenchman and asked. Passepartout was very surprised to see Fix again, but he explained the journey from Bombay and Aouda's story. However, Passepartout now finally started wondering if Fix was following them. Is he watching my master from the Reform Club people? He thought. He decided not to tell Fogg about this. On Wednesday afternoon, the 30th of October, the Rangoon sailed through the narrow strait of Malacca. At 4 a.m. next morning, it arrived at Singapore Island half a day early and stopped for a few hours. Passepartout went shopping for some fruit, while Fogg and Aouda took a 2-hour trip through the beautiful country in a horse and carriage. Fix followed close behind, hid in the trees. He was watching every move that they made. Chapter 5. Mr. Fogg misses the boat. Rangoon was now ready to start its 1,300-mile voyage to Hong Kong, a British island near the coast of China. At first, the weather was fine, and Fogg hoped to arrive in 6 days, in time to catch the ship to Yokohama, Japan on 5th of November. But then, a storm hit the Rangoon and slowed her badly. Mr. Fix was pleased. He wanted Fogg to miss the Yokohama boat. After the storm, the captain told Fogg,
We are going to arrive 24 hours late.
Has our next ship, the Carnatic, already left Hong Kong?
Fogg asked.
No, she hasn't sailed yet because of a problem with that ship. But the engineers have nearly repaired her, and she's going to leave at 5 tomorrow morning.
They arrived in Hong Kong at 1 on 6th of November, and everyone got off. Fogg now had 16 hours to find Aouda's uncle, while she waited at a hotel. He soon returned with bad news.
I'm sorry, but your uncle has moved to Europe.
Aouda was upset and wondered what to do.
Come with us to Europe.
Fogg said.
Passepartout, go to the Carnatic and tell them that 3 of us will join the ship.
But at the port, Passepartout was surprised to learn that the Carnatic was ready to sail that evening. He was leaving to make sure Fogg knew this when Fix suddenly appeared and invited him into a cafe. The detective still didn't have the arrest papers, so he wanted to stop Fogg from leaving. He planned to keep Passepartout talking. That way, perhaps he could make Passepartout and the others miss the boat. Fix now told Passepartout that he was a detective. He explained that Fogg was the London robber, and that he had to keep Fogg in Hong Kong until the papers arrived. He offered £500 for Passepartout's help, but Passepartout didn't believe Fix and didn't want help. After more talk, he suddenly looked at his watch and saw that the ship was about to leave, hoping that Fogg knew about this from someone else. He rushed to the ship and got on just in time. He imagined that Fogg and Oda were already safely in their cabins. Early next morning, Fogg arrived at the port to find no Carnatic, no Passepartout, just Mr. Fix. Fix happily told him that there was no another ship for a week. Fogg immediately started looking for another way. Soon, he found a man with a small sailing ship, the Tanketer, and offered £100 a day for the Yokohama trip.
The open sea is too dangerous for this little boat.
The captain said,
But I can take you to Shanghai up the Chinese coast. You can go from there to Yokohama.
Fogg agreed. He now planned to ask the police to find Passepartout and then to leave.
Would you like to come too?
He asked Fix. Fix didn't want Fogg to leave, but this was the next big thing. He agreed.
Chapter number 6. A Storm at Sea. Fogg's earlier plan had been this: take the Carnatic 1,600 miles straight to Yokohama in time to meet the General Grant, a fast modern steamship on its way from Shanghai to San Francisco. The new plan was now this: sail 800 miles up the coast of China to catch the General Grant as its starting point, Shanghai. The only problem was time. Today was the 7th of November, and the General Grant was scheduled to leave Shanghai at 7 p.m. on the 11th. Could the little Tanketer sail 800 miles in just over 96 hours? If the sea was calm and the wind in the right direction, the answer was yes. If not, then no. Captain Bunspy and his 4-man crew sailed the Tanketer out of Hong Kong and northeast up the coast at top speed. However, the South China Sea in November is a dangerous place that the seas were rough. Late on the 8th, the sky was growing cloudy. Fix stayed away from the others as much as possible. He felt bad that he was accepting the kindness of the man he was trying to arrest. Meanwhile, Fogg and Aura were both missing Passepartout. Was it possible that he had caught the Carnatic? If so, might they be able to find him in Yokohama? Captain Bunspy and his crew did well, but by early morning on the 9th, the wind was strengthening, and the sky was full of black clouds. The ship was already moving so violently that it was difficult to stand. A big storm was coming. It broke at 8 a.m., and all day huge waves crashed over the Tanketer. But at first the wind was just from the south, so even with just one sail up, they flew along in the right direction. That evening, though, the wind changed to the northwest and grew even more violent. The ship slowed, and the word Bunspy said to Fogg,
We need to find a boat.
I only know of one.
Fogg replied.
Shanghai.
The morning of the 10th came, and the wind was now from the southeast and less violent. The Tanketer made good time that day, but by next morning, the 11th, they were still 100 miles from Shanghai thanks to the storm, and not the 30 miles that Fogg had hoped. Moreover, the wind was getting weaker, and at 7 p.m. they were still 3 miles from port. Bunspy was very upset. Fogg had promised 200 pounds extra for reaching Shanghai on time, and now that couldn't happen. But then, a tall black funnel started rising slowly over the horizon. It was the General Grant. The Tanketer had a gun for sending signals in bad weather.
Please use it,
Fogg said calmly. The gun roared, and the steamship's captain heard. Did the Tanketer need help? He wondered. He turned towards the smaller ship. Soon after that, Captain Bunspy was a much richer, happier man, and Fogg, Aura, and Fix were on their way to Yokohama.
Chapter 7. Together again, Japan. Passepartout arrived in Yokohama and the Carnatic on the 30th of November with no money and only the clothes that he was wearing. He walked the streets for hours and was soon very hungry. But next morning, he knew that he must make some money. Then Passepartout saw a clown in a funny clothes dancing in the street. He followed the clown to a brightly painted theatre that was kind of circus. He went inside and found the master of the group.
I used to be an acrobat in France.
He said,
And I'd like to work for you.
Are you strong?
asked the circus master.
I am the strongest.
Passepartout replied. The master needed a new acrobat that same afternoon, so Passepartout got the job and some colourful clothes to put on. It was an important job too. He had to stand very still while other acrobats climbed up and stood on top of him, higher and higher. But then Passepartout noticed something amazing. Phileas Fogg and Aouda were in the audience. He was so surprised that he suddenly moved, and with that, all the acrobats above crashed to the floor. The circus people were very angry, but Fogg paid the master some money, and so Passepartout was allowed to go.
But you weren't on the Carnatic, so how did you reach Japan?
Passepartout asked. Fogg explained.
When we missed the Carnatic in Hong Kong, Mr. Fix, Oda and I took a small boat to Shanghai instead. Then we caught the San Francisco steamship from there, and it brought us here this morning. It doesn't leave for America till this evening, so I decided to look for you.
It was now 6:30, and they got to the port just in time. Minutes later, the American ship set off. And as the General Grant was one of the fastest ships in the world, it was expected to cross the enormous Pacific Ocean in 21 days or less. On the 9th day, Fogg saw that they were exactly halfway around the world from London. He was pleased. On the same day, Passepartout saw Fix for the first time on the ship, and he wasn't pleased. He was still angry about everything that had happened in Hong Kong. He attacked the detective and knocked him to the floor. Fix stood up slowly and said,
Have you finished? Then let's talk.
Said Fix.
The arrest papers arrived in Yokohama, and I now have them. But I can't arrest your master because we're not visiting any more British colonies. I have to wait until we return to England. That means we both want the same thing. We want your master to get home as fast as possible, and I'll do everything I can to help. But will you keep my secret?
He asked. Passepartout thought and finally agreed. 11 days later, early on 3rd of December, the General Grant arrived safely in San Francisco. Phileas Fogg was exactly on time.
Chapter number 8. By train from San Francisco. It was 7 a.m. on 3rd December when Fogg, Aouda, and Passepartout left the General Grant in San Francisco. The train did not depart from New York till 6 that evening, so they had some time. First, they went to a hotel near the port to have breakfast.
I've heard that the sail have attacked some trains this winter,
said Passepartout to Fogg.
So, shall I buy some guns to take with us in the train?
Fogg gave Passepartout some money to get the guns while he and Aouda went to see the city. Then Mr. Fix suddenly appeared. He pretended to be amazed to see them and said,
What? Have we just been across the Pacific together and not met on the ship?
Fogg politely invited Fix to look around the city with them, and the detective happily accepted. In the afternoon, they returned to the hotel to meet Passepartout, and then they all went to the railway station. The train left on time and started its long and dangerous journey across America. This trip usually took 7 days, so Fogg planned to be in New York to catch a ship across the Atlantic Ocean on 11th December. The passengers ate and slept on the train as it moved slowly across California and into the mountains. At one place, the train had to stop for 3 hours because 10 or 12,000 buffalo were walking slowly across the railway line. By 11 a.m. on the 7th of December, the train was near the highest point in the wild, snowy mountains. But then it stopped. Passepartout and lots of other passengers got off to find out why. Ahead, there was a red signal. Beside it, the driver was talking seriously with the man who had been sent from the next station to stop the train. He was saying,
"You can't go on. The bridge ahead is damaged and won't support the train's weight."
A telegram had been sent from a new train to come from farther east and pick up everyone from the next station, but the passengers would have to walk for 6 hours through the snow to get there.
6 hours?
Cried Passepartout, thinking of Fogg's timetable. "Walk in the snow?" cried the other travelers. But then the driver said,
"There is a way of getting across. If we go at full speed, there is a good chance that we'll succeed."
What a crazy idea.
Passepartout thought. However, everyone else liked the driver's exciting plan, so that was the end of the discussion.
"Take your seats, everyone,"
shouted the driver. They all jumped on the train again, and the train went back nearly a mile. Then it started to move forward again, faster and faster, until it was doing 100 miles per hour. It almost flew over the bridge. There was only one problem. Just after they had crossed, the whole bridge fell with a huge crash into the water below. Chapter number 9. An attack in the Wild West. By the evening after the adventure at the bridge, the travelers had reached the highest point of their journey. In 4 days and 4 nights, they had traveled 1,382 miles from San Francisco. Now, they simply had to go down from the Rocky Mountains and travel for another 4 days and 4 nights across the Great Plains to reach New York and the Atlantic Ocean. It was snowing a lot, but the train was moving steadily eastwards through the state of Utah, then Wyoming, and then in onto Nebraska. And that was when the sound of guns was suddenly heard. Passepartout looked out of the window and saw the large numbers of Sioux warriors were attacking the train. They were riding horses, and some were climbing onto the carriages. Many had guns, and they were shooting. The passengers on the train started fighting back, and among them was Oda, bravely shooting through the broken windows at any warrior that she saw. But things got worse when one of them attacked the driver. The train was soon out of control and moving faster and faster. Fort Kearny Station was now less than 2 miles ahead, and there were lots of soldiers there who could perhaps help them, though clearly not if the train was moving at top speed. The conductor of the train shouted that someone had to stop the train before it went past the fort into open country.
"We will stop it,"
said Fogg. But Passepartout pushed past him toward the front of the carriage and said,
"Stay here, sir. I'll go."
He first climbed out of the carriage and then secretly climbed under the other carriages towards the front of the train. When he finally got to the front, he pulled a metal bar as hard as he could. The engine then came away from the rest of the train. The carriages were free and started to slow down, while the engine now on its own went even faster. The carriages stopped at last close to Fort Kearny Station, and the sound of gun brought the soldiers there running to the train to help. With this, the Sioux stopped their attack, left the train and disappeared to the south. Many of the passengers were hurt, but no one was dead, it seemed. But then, when everything was calmer, everyone was counted and 3 did not answer as their names were called. One of them was the brave Frenchman who had saved the train and everyone on it. What happened to these 3? Had they now been killed? Were they now prisoners of the Sioux? No one knew. Tears ran down the face of Auda, who now owed her life for a second time to Passepartout.
"I will find him, dead or alive,"
Fogg said quietly to Auda, and Auda knew that he was serious. She knew that nothing could stop him from trying to rescue Passepartout.
Chapter 10. The Race to New York. After the fight, Fogg prepared to follow the warriors to the south and rescue Passepartout. And he asked the captain to help. But the captain replied,
"I can't leave the fort to save just 3 people. They may already be dead.
Then I'll go alone.
Fogg said.
Remember, Passepartout saved all our lives.
Hearing this, the captain decided to let 30 of his soldiers go with Fogg. To the men, Fogg said,
I'll give you 5,000 pounds to share if we rescue the prisoners.
Next, Fogg gave Ouda his bag with all the money, and he asked Fix to stay at the station and look after her. Then he said goodbye and left with the soldiers. Ouda thought he was the bravest man in the world. A few hours later, the engine returned. The driver was now well enough to go back and get the carriages and then to continue the journey. Soon after that, everyone except for Ouda and Fix got on and left. Dark came and snow was falling. Ouda sat awake all night worried about Fogg. But then, at 7 next morning, Fogg, Passepartout and all the others arrived safely. Ouda was extremely happy. However, the train had gone. The next would not arrive till that evening, and Fogg was already 20 hours behind schedule.
If we can't get to New York by 9 p.m. on 11th December, we'll be too late,
he said. Passepartout was very upset because he felt that it was all his fault. But then Fix asked Fogg,
Do you really have to be there by then?
Yes, it's extremely important.
Well, there's a man here who can take us over the snow on a sledge with sails.
There was no time to lose. They climbed on the open sledge and started the 200-mile journey to Omaha, Nebraska. It was cold and dangerous, and Passepartout had to shoot at wolves that came too near. But it was fast, and they were able to travel at 40 miles per hour. Then, when they arrived in Omaha, there was a train ready to leave for Chicago. Quickly, they all jumped on, and in minutes, they were traveling again. They reached Chicago the next day, 10th of December. They got off and immediately got on another train for New York. They set off again, and it seemed that everything was going well. However, it didn't go quite well enough. They finally arrived in New York at 11:15 on the night of 11th December, and they were too late. The China, the ship to England, had already left. It was a disaster. Fogg and his friends were terribly sad and disappointed. They were also exhausted, so in the end, the travelers decided that they should go to the St. Nicholas Hotel on Broadway in order to get some sleep. After all that had happened, it now seemed that there was no hope of finishing the journey in 80 days.
Chapter 11. The Race to Britain. Fogg woke at 7 a.m. on 12th December. He now had 9 days, 13 hours and 45 minutes until 8:45 p.m. on the 21st of December. That was when he needed to be at the Reform Club in London. He went alone to the port to search for a ship to Europe. He found one, the Henrietta, which was ready to sail, but it was going to Bordeaux in France. Fogg offered the captain a lot of money to take the travelers to England, but the captain refused. Then Fogg asked to buy the ship. Again, the answer was no.
Then will you take us to Bordeaux for 1,600 pounds?
Captain could not say no to so much money.
We leave at 8 o'clock,
he said.
We will be ready,
Fogg replied. He rushed back to the hotel to get the others. Not long after the ship had sailed, Fogg started offering the sailors money. The result was that the captain was soon locked in his cabin, and Fogg was sailing the Henrietta towards Liverpool in England. However, this was farther than Bordeaux, and after several days, Fogg realized that they did not have enough coal to get there. He therefore went to the captain and said,
To keep the engine running, I need to burn the wooden parts of the ship, so I'll buy it from you for 12,000 pounds.
At first, the captain was angry, but then he agreed. And the plan worked. Everything wooden was burned, piece by piece, and the Henrietta just managed to reach Queenstown, on the south coast of Ireland. That was at 1 a.m. on the 21st. The travelers rushed to the railway station and jumped on the 1:30 a.m. train to Dublin. From there, they caught the fast early morning steamer to Liverpool. They arrived at 11:30. They were back in England, and Fogg was now just a 6-hour journey away from London. Then, at the exact moment when he got off the ship and entered the country, Detective Fix walked over to him, put his hand on his shoulder and asked,
"Are you really Phileas Fogg?"
I am,
answered Fogg.
"Then I arrest you in the Queen's name,"
said Fix. Fix had succeeded, and Fogg was quickly taken to prison. Passepartout was very angry, and Oda simply did not understand what was happening. While Fogg was sitting in the prison, he looked calmly at his watch. In order to reach London by 8:45 that evening, he needed to get on a train immediately. It seemed certain that he could not get there in time. But at 2:30, he heard a noise outside, and the door was quickly opened by Passepartout. He, Oda, and Fix rushed into the room. Fix looked terrible, and he could hardly speak.
"Sir, I'm so sorry. You look so much like him. The robber. They've just arrested him. You're free."
Phileas Fogg was free, but he was in the wrong city. Chapter number 12. All's well that ends well. Fogg, Passepartout, and Oda left the prison immediately and went to the railway station. They got on the London train and started the last part of their long journey. The train was fast, but it arrived at 8:50, and this was 5 minutes later than the 8:45 deadline at the Reform Club. Everything was lost, and nearly all of Fogg's £20,000 was gone too. He and the others went quietly to his house, and Passepartout went out to buy some food. At 11:30 the next morning, and for the first time in his many years at that address, Fogg did not go to the Reform Club. He stayed in his room and did not come out. Finally, at 7:30 in the evening, Fogg called Passepartout and asked him to bring Oda.
Oda,
he said,
"I'm sorry that I've brought you to England. If I were rich, I could help you, but now I'm poor."
"I want to thank you for saving my life,"
Oda replied. Then, to make him feel better, she said,
"You've lost all your money, but you still have your family and friends."
"No, I have no one close,"
answered Fogg. Oda thought that this was terribly sad. They said nothing for a while, and then she took his hand.
"Mr. Fogg,"
said Oda, looking straight at him,
"if you want a family and also a friend, will you marry me and be my husband?"
For a moment, he was silent. He just looked into her face, amazed. He breathed deeply and then simply said,
"I love you. Yes, I love you, and I'm completely yours."
They called Passepartout and told him the news. They said that they wanted to get married at the very next day, Monday, 23rd December. Passepartout rushed out to the nearest church to make preparations. But just 30 minutes later, he returned. Fogg asked him what was wrong.
"You can't get married tomorrow because tomorrow is Sunday, not Monday,"
said Passepartout.
"But that's impossible."
"No, today is Saturday. You've made a mistake of one day. You must go to club immediately."
Then Fogg understood.
"Of course, because we traveled 8 against the sun. That gave us another day. I've won. I really have been around the world in 80 days.
Fogg left home quickly and went straight to the club. Then he walked in just a few seconds before 8:45 p.m. on Saturday, 21st December. His friends were amazed. But of course, they kept their word, and they immediately gave him their £20,000, and the money was his. But what did Fogg have after his long and difficult journey around the world? He was certainly not richer, because the £20,000 in his bag was nearly all gone. But 2 days later, he had something else, and something very special. A beautiful new wife who made him the happiest of men. To find this great happiness was certainly worth any journey around the world.